Hi, welcome to Success Factors. I'm your host, Brenda Siri, and today I'm joined by Matt Tate, the Director of Operations for Salvo Security Group. Nice to have you on the show, Matt.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
You bet. Matt, I know you're an Army combat veteran, and survival instructor, and thank you so much for your service to our country. You're also an herbal medic and have trained extensively in wilderness medicine. And you've trained everywhere from jungles, mountains, swamps, and deserts. And now you're here with me. So thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
You bet. Thank you again for having me.
You bet. Matt, I know you have a background in the military. Can you tell us a little bit more about your military experience?
Yeah, it was a great experience. I think it shaped who I would become when I joined at 18, with being exposed to really, really good leaders who invested in me. I think shaped my destination in life. And so I served for 9 years. And in that time, I was in an Oklahoma National Guard unit as a combat engineer. And then concurrently, I worked full-time for the Oklahoma Military Department as a drill instructor for those 9 years. And then saw one deployment to the Middle East, spent a year there, and learned a lot of things in that deployment, just about myself and the world, and wouldn't take it back for anything. And overall, I would say the military probably saved me in a lot of ways. It was a great experience.
You talked about things you learned, and I saw a quote of yours online that says, "I'm a $2 guy using $10 words." Tell me what that means.
That actually was a phrase that I would use in my herbal medicine classes. And someone pointed that out. I didn't realize that was a thing that got attention. But I would use medical terms, and I am not a professional medicine person. I'm not a nurse, a doctor, an EMT. But I would tell my students, I'm not trying to use fancy words with you, so you think that I'm trying to use words that you're going to encounter whenever you go and start doing this research, like galactagogue or whatever the word is. But my point was, I'm not trying to talk fancy. I'm trying to expose you to these words because of all the time that I spent reading these books and then having to go look up definitions for these books. So I can use some $10 words, but I'm still a $2 guy.
I love that. And now I understand you own your own company who teaches survival training. And tell me, who are your main customers?
Mostly, well, I don't think I can use the word mostly. I would say it varies a lot. Mostly in terms of civilians, I guess I could say. But I've had people who just want to feel more comfortable when they go hiking, to know that, if they were to have a mechanical injury, have to spend an unexpected night in the woods, that they've got more confidence to be able to do that, all the way to the far end of the spectrum with people who see the world through their eyes, and probably through lots of other people's eyes, viewed the same way, as kind of unstable at some points. And they just want to have the skills to be able to take care of themselves. They find themselves like in a long-term situation where the government's tied up with so many people who need help that they may be on their own. So kind of everywhere in that, from I just want to be more comfortable on a hike to I think the world might end next week, and everything in between are the people with mindsets that come out to train with us.
Yeah. So in your role as the director of operations at Salvo Training, which is where I met you, I hired you to teach me how to shoot a gun for personal protection. And I remember being actually kind of scared about the whole process. I had never shot a gun before. But training with you, you made me feel very comfortable, very safe about handling the gun, and it was empowering. And So is that kind of when people come to you, to learn to shoot, is that really typically the main reason because of fear of guns, or what kind of goes through people's minds?
I would say that it's more of the fear of not being comfortable with guns and the ability to use one to protect themselves in a worst case scenario. We do have a lot of first time shooters that come. And our goal is to get them to be able to use that thing responsibly and safely. Understand it's all of its cycle of operations, and to master that thing as much as possible, so that yes, they're comfortable in carrying that or keeping that, in their home or vehicle for self-defense. But if you didn't grow up with somebody in your family who taught you about those things, it can be very intimidating.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's very important to us to kind of remove some of that mystique that someone may have in terms of that gun or that fear of that loud bang. It's just pieces of metal and plastic, and it doesn't do anything that we don't command it to do. And so how to just properly manage that and to feel more comfortable with their own safety.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because, we have firearms in our home, and I always say to myself, I hope I never have to pull one of those out and defend myself. It's really quite a terrifying thought, but I think a lot of people today feel like they have to have that level of protection in their homes,
Well, and that's where that training, we come back to that training mindset. If, heaven forbid, you had to use that to protect yourself or your family, it's going to be probably the scariest moment of your life. And you don't want to be the person who just goes and buys a firearm for protection and then, so to speak, leaves it in the package and says, oh, I'm good, I've got this, and never train with it and never learn about it. Because in the scariest moment of your life that you need to use that to protect yourself or your family is not the moment that you want to figure out, how do I load this thing?
Yeah. How
do I shoot this thing accurately? And so we want to get all those things out of the way because it's going to be scary enough, just the thought of, someone prowling around your house, much less the actual need to defend yourself.
Right. It seems like every day, there's another news story about some horrific shooting. I know in the past few months, we had the shooting at Brown University and MIT, the unthinkable shooting that occurred on Bondi Beach in Sydney. We've seen problems in Minnesota. We had 2 dentists killed by an ex-husband. I mean, it's just everywhere. And I would assume that the demand for security training is really increasing, especially after events like this happen. Is that true?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And what I'm seeing, we can look at a large number of those incidents and we can find a collective similarity to those things oftentimes, and that is places of vulnerability that people think are vulnerable. They think that they are soft targets, and that's why those places get chosen. A predator, whether it's on 4 feet or 2, are looking for the same thing. They're looking to minimize risk to themselves and to maximize the destruction that they can do. And so we're finding that a lot of organizations are starting to have those thoughts. Let's plan, let's take away the whole vulnerability and keep our people safe. So I'm seeing a lot more of that from places of worship to other things where our whole goal is to make it to where they've got good training and they're not as vulnerable.
Yeah, it's interesting you brought up places of worship because, sadly we hear more about the need for that. And, I know as a kid, I never thought about having to have a security officer at church. And today, I see my daughter take my granddaughter to church and I think about it, that there are actually several police officers there at the church. Why is that really just all about that? It's a vulnerable place.
I think there's kind of multiple angles to that. One, traditionally, I would say absolutely, it's been a more vulnerable place, and so you'll see a lot of those places that are bringing in police officers, off-duty deputies, those types of things. But I'm seeing a lot of those places start to train their own people to be their own first responders. As good as law enforcement is, there is no person in a uniform that will go to the lengths of sacrifice that you will for your kid. Nobody else will do that on this planet that you will do. And so it's really encouraging to see a lot of these places are starting to say, you know what, we want this support from our police department. And the best part about that is that now you have a commonality, a known visual representation of there is going to be a force that you're going to encounter when you see police cars, when you see uniformed officers there. It's a very good visual deterrent. But there are documented events that have occurred in Texas, for example, that had law enforcement officers who were present. And, people with bad intentions still came in and started to do their attacks. So I think it's very encouraging to me to see that a lot of people are starting to take their safety into their own hands and are getting training and taking those additional steps to have that visual presence of you can come here and worship and not worry about your family's safety. We're going to take that responsibility on and make sure that you have a safe place to do that. Very encouraging. Right.
I know you also do some top security work with other government agencies. Is there anything that you can share about that work?
I can just say that it's related to things that I do with Salvo Security Group in the terms of teaching firearms and those types of things as a contractor with a government agency. But that's about as deep as I can go into that.
Yep, understood and respect that. Tell me what differentiates your company from other companies in a similar space.
That's always my favorite thing to talk about. Anybody who's trying to be good with their business development, that should be their favorite thing they're talking about. For us, it's relationship building. I am not the only person in the world that can teach somebody to shoot a gun or to do this or to do that. There's lots of skilled people out there. Our approach is have highly skilled people that we work with so that we are teaching the best that there is to be taught out there. But the big thing for us is to develop those relationships with our clients, and especially new clients. We don't approach anything as a cookie cutter type situation. Like someone reaches out to me and says, hey, I want to learn about getting security for our church. Then I've probably got 20 or 30 questions for them because what we bring to the table needs to be palatable and digestible for not just that church leadership, but the congregation, regardless of what kind of church it is. And so our intent is always to build out what we do to fit the needs of that particular organization, whether it's dealing with a church or a private entity. We train other security teams, executive protection teams, but it should always be tailored to, I don't want to waste your time and I don't want to waste your money giving you stuff that you don't need or you're not going to use, or there's just not going to be a lot of favor for that within your organization. So that's where we really put our focus is on that ground floor of let's have these conversations and make sure that what we build is actually customized to you and your needs, and go from there. And so it has served us very well doing that. And we have not just built great business relationships doing that, but great friendships with the people that we do business with. And I wouldn't do it any other way. I think that creates slower growth, but I think that growth is more stable for what we're doing, and it creates long-term relationships instead of just, here's a Band-Aid for the thing, now go on and let me have my next customer. We just don't approach it that way. We want to be relationship based with our clients.
Good. Okay, we're going to shift gears away from guns, sort of.
All right.
We're going to talk about a super cool project that you were involved in with Netflix, one of my favorite things I've seen, and it's called Snowflake Mountain. And it was #1 in streaming for quite a while. What was that, about 3 years ago?
Yep.
Yeah. And so if you haven't seen the show, if you're watching today and don't know what Snowflake Mountain is, I'm sure it can still be watched on Netflix. You can go find it. But Matt, tell our viewers a little bit about the premise of Snowflake Mountain.
So, the whole term snowflake for some people is a little bit jarring. Maybe not to other people. Maybe find it a little bit funny. Right. But the idea was to take 10, 20 somethings who essentially just hadn't been made to stand on their own 2 feet throughout their lives. And this was kind of a rude awakening for them. Now, they ended up thinking they were going somewhere to party for a month. It just didn't quite work out that way. They wound up in the wilderness. So they were kind of tricked into that. And then we wind up meeting them when you see us meet them on the series on the side of a mountain. And they weren't quite ready for that. I'll just say that. But it was a lot of laughs. It is, I think it's safe to say that the backdrop of the series is survival. But the real focus of the series, I think, is personal growth, with lots of laughs too, of all those individuals. And man, what an amazing experience that was to be a part of that. It was really something, not just the experience itself, but the relationships that we developed with the folks who were on that series. It was just a great time.
Yeah. I mean, so truthfully, what you just said, you met them on the side of a mountain. That was real, right?
Yeah, there was. That's something I get asked a lot because they were big personalities.
Yes.
Every one of them were big personalities. And so that's always a question, like how much of that was scripted. There wasn't anything that was scripted. Sorry about that. There was nothing that was scripted. The first day or two, they brought us some notes that they wanted to make sure that we covered in terms of like, oh, hey, be sure and cover this when you're around the campfire, to make sure that we're putting that out there to them. And then after that, to be honest, it was kind of intimidating at first, because where do you get training to be a host of a series? Like, I don't know the answer to that. Yeah. And so the question was, after a couple of days of being on set, like, I just don't understand. Like, tell me what you are looking for from us. And they said, well, I don't know. Just, you guys just be yourselves and we'll see where it goes. Yeah. And so when they said that, I was like, well, that's pretty easy to just be myself.
Yeah.
And so outside of that, though, going back to that question, like in terms of scripts, like there just wasn't any scripts. There was nothing scripted. And what you see is all of their original reactions in the moment.
Yeah. You mentioned I know I watched the show when it was on. And so you were on there with someone named Joel. Yep. Is he a training partner with you? Did you come there together, or how did you two get connected to be on that show?
Yeah. So Joel Graves was the co-host of the series, and he and I actually met in 2012. going through survival instructor school. He had been there for a little bit longer program than I was there for when I arrived, but 40 days and nights in the wilderness to get certified as a survival instructor. And he was just one of those guys that it was just kind of like we were cut from the same cloth. Just kind of had that connection. He had the military background too. He was a naval special operations guy, and we just kind of, I don't know, just kind of had this this bond that we developed, and that became great friends. And then a few years down the road, we started American Survival Co. Survival School together, and he ran our branch down in Jacksonville, Florida. But we had just always stayed friends and partners in that, even though there was, distance. I'm in Northwest Arkansas and he's in Florida. But when we got, which you may have some questions about that, when the whole show idea came up, it was like, there's nobody else that I would rather do the series with. It was like, we knew each other inside. You don't spend 40 days and nights in the wilderness living off the land surviving and not have a pretty good idea of who that person is that you're doing that with, Yeah. And so it was just cherry on the top. Not only do I get to do this really cool thing that, comes along once in 10 lifetimes, I get to do it with my buddy.
Yeah.
And so it was just great. It was amazing.
That's very cool. So how'd you guys end up getting the deal with Netflix?
So all I can tell you is what I think happened. They had someone else, a famous person and their spouse who were slotted to do that series. And I think the deal fell through at the last minute. And when I say last minute, like a week and a half, 2 weeks out from them actually getting people there on the ground to start filming. And so it was a production company based out of London, and they needed someone who knew survival, knew how to teach survival. So I'm sure in London, they are searching for Americans who can do survival skills. And I can only assume that they typed in American Survival School or company. And obviously American Survival Co. is the name of our company. That's my guess. Nobody told me that, but that's my guess. They found us and they saw we had a YouTube presence. We had been on video before, comfortable on video. We had done a series with Discovery Channel a couple of years before that. And so my guess is that's how it played out. And then that just led to a couple conversations, but it all really happened fast because that other deal at the time we didn't know, had fallen through. But it was the prime example of when opportunity knocks, answer that door.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to walk through the threshold. They asked us things like, you guys feel comfortable hosting this series? Of course I didn't feel, I never hosted a series before. Who's hosting a series until they host a series? But what I said to them was, oh yeah, absolutely. I think we can knock it out of the park. And in my mind, I'm thinking like, what's the worst that could happen? It doesn't work out.
Yeah.
Like, it won't work out for sure if I don't take that chance.
Yeah.
If I don't put some faith in ourselves that we can conquer whatever task is in front of us. And Joel kind of had the same mindset we had talked about. It was like, let's do the thing. But because it was all kind of last minute deal fall through on the other folks, that meant when they said, hey, we've put you guys in front of Netflix, they like you guys, we want you to be the guys who host the series, except that you have to leave for the UK in 4 days and you'll be gone for a month. And I was like, sign me up, let's go. This sounds great. Yeah. I think they were a little bit surprised that, but that's one of those things like, if you're not willing to take opportunities when they present, like they're going to leave you behind.
Yeah.
So we did it, and it was a really great experience.
So fun. You said you were in the UK for a month. What was it? The whole time you were filming? Was it 4 weeks of filming, or?
COVID was really heavy. Like it was in the midst of all that at the time. And so when we got there, we had to do a quarantine for 10 days, which was an interesting experience in itself. But after that 10 days, then we did 20 days of filming out there.
Okay. I remember watching, and you're right. I mean, it was funny. I did a lot of laughing. I just couldn't believe these kids that were, in this series. They were super entitled, right? They came from pretty wealthy families. Was that really how they were? Or was that staged?
No, that's really how they were. But here's the thing that I would say: it's so easy for us to. I don't know if casting judgment is the right word, but it's easy for us to see a certain attribute or a certain behavior and say, well, that means this, and I'm putting this person into this category here. But when you start talking to people, sometimes it's just because they didn't know. So if I see you walking around the store and your shoe's untied, and I just start laughing at you, who's the jerk? Like maybe nobody taught you to tie your shoe. Now, if I ask you, do you know how to tie your shoe? And you say, yeah, I'm just too lazy, then maybe I'll laugh at you. But if nobody taught you that thing, and so I had amazing aunts and uncles, grandmother, grandfather, people who loved me and invested in me. I had a big family. And so even though my father passed away when I was very young, like I had other people who stepped in and loved and cared about me and taught me things of how to do things and also just how to be. I think sometimes it's important for us to remember not everybody gets that. Not everybody has that amazing family, those amazing aunts and uncles that are helping build them into something. And so our intent with that show, even though, there were some larger than life characters, was how about we just meet them where they're at? And let's go from there. Like they don't have my experiences in life. They haven't been forced to grow up the way I was or Joe was, through the military. Like these people haven't had those experiences. So how can I not run them off? How can I actually meet them where they are and then start helping pull them up the hill towards success? And that was really our outlook and our focus because I say that because I get people all the time who tell me I would have strangled those people. There's no way I would have lost my temper. And I'm like, well, I mean, maybe, but if you give it a little bit more depth of thought, maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you'd say, can I invest in you and help you? And if I can, I'll do that. If I can't, well, you can't save them all. But that was really our approach. But yeah, they were larger than life characters, and that was definitely a thing. So, but that was our approach, and it worked out well for us. And I like to think it worked out well for the folks on the show too.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know what you're talking about and the approach that you took, and you could really see, some of them really turning around and really adapting to what you were doing. So do you still keep in touch with any of them today?
I haven't spoken to them in a while. The first probably year and a half, we tracked pretty good, staying in contact. Now I still see them on Instagram. It's just been a while since I've reached out because life is just crazy busy, and I'm sure their life is crazy busy too.
Sure.
But I wish them all the best, and I hope they're all doing really well. We certainly wanted great success for them. But I still see their posts and things, and some of them I'm like, wow, you really are doing something with your life, and it's good. It's good to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. You made an impact. You and Joel did. That's great.
I hope so.
Yeah, I think so too. So as we roll into 2026, what's on the horizon for you and your company?
I think continuing to build relationships with our existing customers, and we've got a lot on our table for our schedule expanding this year with new clients who are coming on board. And I think my approach is going to just be the same slow, steady pace of building those relationships that are going to last long term and investing in those clients to help them be the best that they can be. So what has worked for us over the past 4 or 5 years, not changing anything. We are positioned in a really good spot to where we can continue to do what we've been doing and avoid the dangers of like explosive growth that you can't manage and that you can't contain. I think our approach, as I said earlier, has meant slower growth. But I think if we continue on that route, we are seeing growth every quarter. We're seeing growth every year, and we're just going to continue to do what we're doing. We're not changing any of our approach or any of our mission plan. It's just to help people and help develop our clients. And so, if it's not broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
That's my thought process.
I love it. So if anyone is watching today and they're interested in connecting with you, what is the best way for them to do that?
You can visit our website at salvo.training, SALVO.training. There you can see we have a multitude of things that we do. We have so many great instructors with all of these really in-depth backgrounds, from special operations to medical to you name it, de-escalation, combatives, just the list goes on. But if you go there, you can get a snapshot of a lot of the different things that we do that we can help you with. And then there's a place on there where you can reach out to us, shoot us an email, and then we just start having conversations from there. That's always the thing, like, how do I get a hold of you guys? Not even get a hold of us, but like, how do we make things happen? And it's through just conversations. Just reach out, shoot an email. We go back and forth with some conversations. If we think that we're a good fit for each other and that we can bring value to what you want to do, then we just start there on the ground floor and start building something out that makes good sense for your organization to be successful. That's it.
That's great. Yeah. It's the smartest thing to do is have an intake meeting, make sure you understand what your clients are looking for and that you do fit each other. I love that. That's great. Well, Matt, I know you have got an incredibly busy schedule, and I am so thankful that you did take the time out today to join me on the show. I wish you continued success and really appreciate your time.
All right. Thank you for having me on. It was a good time. I appreciate it.
Good. Well, that's it for Success Factors, and we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.